in the next 18 months, I want to have more financial freedom. That doesn't mean more money, but I want to have more financial freedom, decreasing the amount of stuff I own, all those things to make sure I stay as close as possible out of debt completely to make sure I can move in the world that I want to. At this age, there's enough of an ecosystem that some of the biggest creators over 1 million you've never heard of. And there's ones that are, smaller and they're crushing it in whatever they do. You can be creative. It's just you got to know what's right for you and go towards that. So you can do so many side hustles being a teacher because you already know how to interact with people. Being online just gives you so many opportunities and a wide range of people.
Welcome to the Polymath Podcast, highlighting your multidisciplinary life, showcasing that it's okay to do many different things. Welcome back to the show, Doc Williams. This is the Round 2 Polycast. Gosh, it's been 5 years, I guess, or so since we last talked, Doc.
Yeah, it's been close to 5 years. So new setup,
Close to, I guess, yeah.
Almost, but I think we're both in the same rooms as before. Are we?
I guess so, because I started doing my interviews, I think, here in this particular place that I'm at now. So that's kind of funny that you mentioned that. You're the first person to realize that. Especially since I've rearranged this room like 60 times.
I was just saying. No, but it's good. It's good to be back. Good to see you. I'm a little trepidation, but we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen in this interview.
This is the first interview that I've ever had done out of a couple hundred that I was the least amount of time I was able to prepare, but I still think I was able to do it. You are a brand developer, podcaster, YouTube marketing educator. Thank you for coming back on the Round 2 show. What I'd like to ask is, how are you doing, Doc?
Doing pretty great. It is January 3rd, 2025. Working on a lot of new things.
Mm-hmm.
AI agents are upon us. We'll see how well this ages in a couple 5 years. But no, a lot of good things are happening. A lot of advancements for personal brands, for companies. Excited to be here and see what we can come up with.
Last time we had you on, we talked about minimum viable builds and talking about kind of this entrepreneurial stuff. And now, since then, you've really kind of flourished into this no-code and automation space. I wanted to ask you, what have you been doing since the first time you come on?
Oh, man. So it's close to 5 years. Pretty much a lot has changed and nothing has changed. I think I have doubled down on the things that I enjoyed doing. And throughout COVID, I almost feel like it was I don't know how many years it feels like. It feels like there was a season of, this is really obscure, but there's a season of Star Trek Voyager. And there was a couple of episodes where it was just basically called The Year of Hell. And it was them going through a certain part. It was a 2-parter. And afterwards, they did the time skip and nothing happened. COVID, these last couple of years, it feels like it's been longer than 3 to 4 years, but at the same time, it feels like it's been a short period of time. I cannot believe it's almost been 5 years since we first spoke, but it's very interesting. So throughout the pandemic, I've had to reinvent myself several times with different jobs that I was doing, but I keep coming back to the same thing, that I enjoy creating content, I enjoy teaching, and it really doesn't matter the subject per se. I enjoy people reaching a goal and seeing that. So since the last time we spoke, I was briefly a teacher for a year in public schools at a CTE school. So it basically means a trade school during high school between college. I was an entrepreneurship teacher there. I was a community manager with several different startups. Some went under during the pandemic. And now I am a program manager for low-code engineers, where you can now hire low-code and no-code experts to finish your projects. And so it's kind of like full circle. Yeah. I've always been talking about this. I enjoy this space. I can build, but I enjoy matching people together. That's what I do as a program manager. And the YouTube channel, I have a lot of aspirations in scaling it that way, but it's going well. So yeah, a lot has changed, and almost nothing has changed in the 5 years almost.
And it's interesting too, because when I first had you on, we definitely got really into the content and entrepreneurship, which I'm sure we'll get into today. But it's kind of interesting because this whole point of this Polymath Polycast show is being multidisciplinary and having a lot of different traits. And I had you on the show because I could clearly tell that you are very polymathic, and you still are. You still embody that. And what you just said there too, Doc, is interesting because it talks about following what you are passionate about and doing things that you are good at doing, kind of going more along the lines of your ikigai. And I think that is very polymathic in nature too.
Yeah. And as you're talking about this, like there's so many different ones that sometimes I talk about online, sometimes I don't. I right now am learning how to become a locksmith because I'm just interested in that. I also see like there's so many businesses, like local businesses. I'm like, oh man, if I was trying to get a side hustle going, so easy to start like a 24-hour or emergency hour, like locksmith or all of these different service-based businesses. I did that. I created a system for a real estate company for their Airbnb. So created all of their automations and AI chatbots for that. It's kind of like the ebb and flow. And I guess since the last time we talked, this is going to be year 3 or 4. I think this is going to be entering year 4 of working for the NBA Summer League. So after we talked in 2020, I tried to work with the NBA and I started working on the front end. Basically, how do you get a job as a general manager or work in the front office? A lot of times the program, they didn't have a lot of automation. So I went and I flew myself to Vegas.
Knuckles and just got everything done.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of crazy things. It's just random things, but I think it always comes back to the same thing. Systems, structure, no code, teaching. Same thing over and over again.
I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry. But it was one of those things too, where like, it just seemed like you went over there and you're like, here's my magic and boom, I'm done.
Yeah. It was, my wife at the time was like, this is crazy. Like this shouldn't work. And actually going into the place, my first year, I didn't have credentials. And so I just knew the main instructor for the program, and they would sneak me in the back, literally, for the Coliseum the entire 2 weeks I was there. So did that. I ended up filming a mini documentary there. And then I turned it into them about 6 months later. And they're like, who is this guy? Like, what is he doing? We need to hire him. And that's actually, then I got the formal contract. So been doing that, year 3, every single year and year round. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, it just makes sense in what I do.
That's a good example too of someone who might not have a way of getting into a particular job because of credentials or something like that. That is the third door, as some people have talked about. Ali Abdal brought it up to me on this show. And so like finding that third door as your way in, and eventually you got the formal job from that too. I was talking to Connor from Opus Clip today, and it was one of those things where I got the job originally with Opus Clip back in the day because, I had a third door. I knew him. I was a content creator. They knew me from the Discord channels, and I just kind of made my presence known. Also, I wanted to mention this. You are my first interview this year.
What? Okay. Well, congrats. I love it.
Congrats to you. Really.
I know.
But also something that...
Congrats to us.
Congrats to us. And ironically, I saw you just a few days ago because since I started doing this show, I started the other show that I do, the Creator Spotlight, because a lot of the people I had on the show were like yourself, content creators. You and I would love to nerd about that kind of thing. And so I wanted to be able to talk to more creators. On that same channel, we have our new show now called The Brand Doctor. So shout out to that. Get some attention on that series. We meet every week. We need to start live streaming, but that's on me. Because
Not yet. Just wait.
Last time you came on, though, like I said, we were talking about content and branding. We talked about a lot Brand Factory. So how did that evolve and where is it now? Is it gone? Do you think you're going to bring it back? How's that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question. It's still there. Don't get me started.
The website, though.
I was just talking to my wife about this. Don't get me started about Bluehost because the way that it jacked up my domains. Don't even get me started. So I'm a little bit upset about that. So when you're like, does it exist? I'm like, yeah, technically I still have my email address, but because dealing with Bluehost and how bad, I had to change all my domains to a different platform. It's a nightmare. And so technically I had to redirect it to Brand Factory OS. So let's talk about what it was then and like what it is now. Brand Factory started out as like the slogan was like, entrepreneurs come in, brands come out. And that came from my wife that loves Chicken Run. Said like chickens go in, pies come out. And then it was a joke on that. It was a spoof on that. But people liked it and it was good. So it talked to people. what I discovered, if I could do it again, it would be very different. But I did a lot of agency work. I worked with a lot of people. And it was all different types of brands, all different types of companies. The reality is most companies I do not like to work with. And that is because you're playing part technician, part therapist. A lot of times when you're dealing with brands that think they know what they're doing, it's almost a therapy session to have them try something new or for them to look at their faults and what they're trying to do. And listen, I'm not perfect, but you have to understand that the internet game and internet businesses change so much year to year, cycle to cycle, pandemic to pandemic. Like, you just got to be ready to pivot. And what I found was a lot of times I would be executing a lot of the work, but we just didn't align on the vision, or there's a lot of excuses. And then it's like, oh, why am I paying you for this, X, Y, and Z? You're not hitting the results. And it's like, when you're dealing with personal brands or a lot of things, there's got to be a lot of alignment, and a lot of things have to be at play to even make this a success. And the bottom line was, I realized that I had a very focused vision of what I think brands can do, what you should be doing, your sales funnel, all those things. And I wanted something different. So what did that look like? Now it's more a consultancy. And some people might be like, you're being semantic. Consultancy is totally different. An agency, you're working for them and you're outputting a certain product. Consultancy, I'm just telling you, hey, this is my vision. This is what my methodology is. Take it or leave it. You're still paying me. And if not, you can go somewhere else. And some people might find that being harsh, but
kind of have to be at some points.
Yeah. And the proof is there. Like, we've worked with we have done the email funnels for more than $1 million of revenue with the NBA. Their Shopify, all their sequence, that's what I did. Right? I've worked with small businesses, small creators, bigger creators, small ones like Make a Wood Sign. Shout out to them. They're in their 4th generation of business, but they really went on YouTube, and that's how they expanded right now. The list goes on. And I'm not perfect for everyone. But you shouldn't have to be. And what I try to create, this methodology, it's meant for lean teams, and it's based on performance and analytics and data. And if people don't want to look at data, that's fine, but you shouldn't work with me. If you just want to be on a hunch, that could work, but the likelihood is extremely, extremely low compared to what you can do by looking at data. And so after working with some of the alumni from 4Ds from Gary Vee and working with NBA and being more selective and focusing on my personal brand, we just turned it into a very niche consultancy where we work with only 3 to 5 clients. And then the rest of the time, I can do my own thing with my brand, and now with low-code engineers and X-ray, but that became a lot organic, and we can go into that later. But consultancy, and that's what we do now.
Interesting. And you and I talk a lot about building our channels and personal brand, especially on that Brand Doctor show. And it's funny because, like, you and I have some different opinions there. Like, I actually do think you could be more intuition-based, but you're more analytics. And there's plenty of times where I need to be more analytical, and there's other times where I think you need to just follow your gut, right? And it's interesting to think about the data doesn't lie. And so if you have the data, then do it. If you don't have the data, then do enough to where you can actually get data.
Yeah. And I think to the point of, like, if there's something that you're super passionate about, you're really connected to the scene, I do think you can be more intuition based. There are certain videos that I do that I'm like, oh, it's just intuition. Like, I know my analytics, like, even if I go for a search, there's no search for it because the search volume's not there. But I see how much my community is talking about it or what's going on in Twitter. I'll just do it. The other thing is, too, I'll have certain guests or different ones. Like, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I can spot a trend or I can spot a creator that I know is going to pop off. It's just something I can see. And so having different ones on the show or working with them, like, it's spot on. And if you want me to talk about, I don't know, it's the last time we talked about, I ended up creating a record label for a year. I'm not sure if we ever talked about it, but that's another thing that, like, my videographer that's been with me we've been together, and it sounds like we're in a relationship, but we've shared office. We've been all together since probably, for 12 years, about 12 years. And he can do the same thing in music. Like, I cannot tell you how many times he's like, that person's going to pop off. I have this one guy, Cody, Kato on the track. Before he popped off and before he worked with Snoop, we got an interview with him. He's from Virginia. We drove down there, all those things. And then he got the collab and then he just popped off, one of the biggest producers during like the pandemic stage. There's just something about it. And so I think if you're really dialed into your niche, you can definitely be more intuitive based. But if it's, hey, I want to make X amount of sales, I really want to do this. A lot of creators do this wishing thing and they don't validate. They don't put out landing page. They don't test if people will pay them. And then they get really discouraged when something goes really horribly wrong, or if they're like, oh, there's no prediction of these sales. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And yeah, before I think I was more lenient or hesitant to approach it, but I'm like, no, I've seen it too many times. I've gone through too many cycles. These are tried and true things. And one last thing too, when we moved into our latest place, me and Jay, it's an old warehouse, like early 1900s. And there is a safe that had all of the guys' journals from 1924 to 1936. They were going to throw them all out. I took all of them. But the thing is, when they had them, it was talking about a salesman and what you should be, how can you be successful in like 1933, 1934 as a salesman, door-to-door salesman. And the same marketing principles in 1934 are the same today. Like, I can bring them out if you want, but it's the same fundamental things. You're talking to humans. It's the same structure. You have to keep talking to people. You have to make returns. You have to have the conversation more. They have to trust you. Then you go for the ask. Like, so these fundamentals, no matter if it's crypto, if it's AI agents, humans are humans. And yeah, that's what I feel even more reinforced after all these years.
I love those points you made, Doc. And one thing that keeps kind of coming to mind too, and why you and I get along so well for our other show, is that we're both systems thinkers. And we both see the patterns naturally. And I think that the way we see things is a little bit different, which is helpful because that way we can get a bigger picture together. But I find that I recently got you to finally download Obsidian, so I'm excited about that. It's something I talk about a lot on this particular channel because knowledge management is one of the areas I nerd out about. The reason why I love it so much too is that you can create these systems in there. And those journals you just talked about, you could start doing your own journal like that. And then who knows, maybe how you found the physical journals in that warehouse, someone could find your digital journals on some sort of archive website or something like that. It'd be cool,
That'd
like
be
100 years from now.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And thinking about like just data, that's why in between we just released it last week, but it was like the no code AI trends report. And this is the third year because a lot of builders or a lot of tinkerers are like, oh no, I can make money this way. Or they see stories on Twitter and they think that it's always real. Or like this person made $5 million from a faceless YouTube channel last month. Like, it's like,
yeah,
okay, but like, let's peel back the onion. Let's talk about it. When you have data and historical data over time, I'm really fascinated on data sets now, APIs, and just large amounts of data to look at correlations, but also how people are making money, where people are making money. I cannot tell you how many different influencers that are on Fansly and like OnlyFans and how they actually make money. I think it's very interesting. Like, a lot of people don't understand the economics of it, and they're really just hijacking. There's so many different things of psychology that they're doing. I digress on that, but we could talk about that later. But the thing is, when you look at OnlyFans, when you look at feed finders, if you look at Patreon, it's all the same thing. It's human interaction to get people into a funnel, to get people into a community, to do a certain action. If you look at school, don't get me started about the UI UX of Alex Hormozi's thing, but it's all the same mechanics. People think it's very different, but it's humans interacting. And if you can build that intuition or really understand or actively listen to your audience and what people are doing, you can go pretty far. It's pretty interesting.
It brings me to one of my questions, actually. Why did you start doing those trends reports?
So I'll tell you, I haven't told this story publicly. So there was
you heard it here, folks.
There was a company I was. No, you didn't hear that. No. No, but there was this company. So two reasons. Number one, I'm a little bit petty. And number two, I really do care about large like data sets and everything. So the first thing is, in no code, there are so many things where people think you can make money selling apps or courses and everything. And I wanted to see I had a hunch on what was going to happen, but I wanted to have real data. Who is making the most money? Are the loudest people online that are selling courses, are they really making most of the money? And that's where the data, like, I wanted to dig in. And I've been around no code pretty much since the beginning when the term got popular. I started at the end of 2019. I started using Bubble in 2017. Mm-hmm. I think I was pretty early to it. And especially when COVID hit, we were the first crop of influencers in no code. So I've been around a couple cycles with it. And so creating it, I wanted to show people there was other ways to make money than building apps for people. And we can talk about the results of some of them. And year after year, it still proves to be true. But the second thing is, I was working with a startup. I put a lot of time and effort trying to build their report. And I can understand now that the company was basically, they were losing funding. They were burning too much cash. But instead of just going out and saying, like, if we're burning too much cash, we have to reconsolidate. It was almost like, oh, your department's not performing or this not working. Like, this is why we're going to let you go. And, they ended up, I think about 40% of the company, like 2 months later after I got let go, left. But I was in the middle of writing their report. And so I'd already been working on all these pivot tables, how to understand it. And I'd never done it before. It took a long time. And once again, one of the things they didn't have any SOPs of how to do it because the guy just knew how to do it for so many years. I'm like, how is this going to scale? You haven't taught anyone that. Anyway, so I learned how to do it. And because that I got let go, they were releasing one. I decided to release my own, just being petty on LinkedIn. So I was like, no, I'm going to release my own under my own brand and everything like that. And we can kind of go into that, like why I switched more over to Doc Williams than Brand Factory now. But we released it and a lot of people enjoyed it. And someone's like, well, if you have historical data, if you keep doing this, think about what it could be in 10 years of all of this data that you've done. And so I was fascinated by it and a lot of the community liked it. That's how we did it.
It reminds me a little bit of Edison Research, I think is the company that I'm thinking of for podcasts. When I went to Podcast Movement last year, and actually the year before, they were like one of the bigger names there. And they were showing all the statistics of like people who were doing this particular type of podcast, or if it's men or women, or who listens to it, stuff like that. And the way you just said it too, like it compounds every year too. You get more and more data that compounds. Also, a little meta tangent here. It's funny because you and I meet every week now. We've done it at least like 8 times, so 2 months in a row or something like that. And it's weird for me because on that show, we're both hosts. And so we're both kind of just going back and forth, jibber jabbering at each other. And during the interviews, it's weird for me to be in an interview with you again because I have to shut up and listen. I can't just like interject like we normally do, like on our normal calls. So I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah.
I can finally get my voice heard on these calls.
Half those episodes are you tearing into me, so I don't want to hear it.
So I'm just happy. I just like this medium. I think maybe we should do more of this.
Actually, what's funny is I kind of wanted to put you back on the creator show too. So.
Oh my goodness.
So people might get sick of your face on that channel. I don't know.
Yeah. Give me some time off. But no. It's very interesting. And I think a lot of, even going back, there is a framework that I use with my clients and myself. It's called like the WWE model. And I'm not a wrestling fan, but it's really true. If you have an annual event, tentpole events, monthly events, weekly events, daily, you can really build out your empire and build out your brands. And usually there is some kind of signature piece of content with a brand that they release. And so with us, we model the same thing. We have BuildCon once a year. So it's a building conference. We either do it live around another conference or we just do it online. We have quarterly events where we're going to be doing some kind of, state of address or something like that. And then we'll do monthly shows and then we do weekly. I view on what we do. That's a weekly broadcast, all of those things, and then all my YouTube videos. So when I was thinking about the resource guide, I am insanely interested in trends reports And this year we did a little bit different how we gathered the data as well to get more entries. But the reality was, I don't think a lot of people, and no matter how many times, and you can read it in the report, how many times I tell people where people are really making money, it's not as sexy as a choice. I think the personality of the people that are making the most money in the industry, they don't like being boastful or telling people how much they make. And honestly, I think people that are really, really insanely rich, they're not usually raising their hands because they don't want people to approach them. I was at the Arnold's years ago when I was really into fitness and I was competing, and I would go to these, different events, and yes, you would have the ones at the booth, the ones that are just yoked up, or you see all these, models, and you'd see someone that's like wearing a polo that's not trying to bring any attention to themselves by the back. They are the ones that have money. They are usually the regional or the higher ups of that company. And they hire people to be and talk to people. They don't want people to talk to them. And I think in this trends report, we have seen the trends. The most quiet people are usually making the most money. And the businesses that they don't want to talk about because they don't want other people to be doing their business. And I respect that. And I also respect them. Thank you for, being honest in giving your feedback in these reports. They're anonymous, but, I also do a lot of one-on-one interviews and talking to people. So I know those numbers are correct. So, yeah.
And since the last time you came on too, one of the things I saw on your personal brand channel is like how to build your own Netflix. And I remember Tribe Tactics, or now they're known as Chopcast, made a whole series about making episodic content. And they were trying to like make your own Netflix too. And it's just interesting. You mentioned too with like WWE having like this certain series, whether it's quarterly or weekly, it doesn't really matter. It's a matter of consistency and making that series into what's essentially television. And I think a lot of people just don't think about that. And I wish we had like a Polymath TV. Maybe I need to work on that too. But yeah, it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I mean, Roberto is always pumping that 24/7 platform for you to use as creators. I would do a 24-hour like live stream on my channel. I've tried it a couple different ways, insanely cheap ways. I just need to there's a popular one out there. I know Nick Nimmin used to have a 24-hour channel that used to go back in the day. I would be interested in doing that. For Polycast, that would be perfect. You just have like a constant thing going. Also to old time radio show YouTube channels.
Or even like just having a modern radio too nowadays, I feel like.
Yeah. Locked In Podcast or Locked In like network, they do Locked In Celtics, Locked In all that. They now have a 24/7, so they're competing against ESPN, but really they're selling slots for advertisements, all of these things. But it's pretty interesting what people are doing on YouTube.
There's actually, before we go on to it, and I know you and I will keep talking content, so I don't want to necessarily make this into a content show, but there's something that someone I talked to is doing. He makes like political and Bitcoin related content. And so there's a lot of input, I guess you could say, in those fields. And usually like just having feeds of even just like the markets going up and down is helpful for a lot of people. And when there's a lot of political news, it's really helpful to have that like, showcase. But he has like multiple live streams going on at once. And like he'll sometimes have uploads like 5 or 6 on one channel. And it's kind of insane just how prolific. Well, the thing is though, Doc, it's working. And with his niche, it makes sense, right? Yeah. For us, having just one stream 24 hours would be fine. And I don't think he's necessarily 24 hours, but he's at least doing things multiple at a time. Very polymathic in that regard, where he's doing multiple things at once. He's multitasking, if you will. But just an interesting concept.
I will say one last thing. I don't like to give Dustin credit for anything, really, but I will say one thing that he mentions. This is something that came up on my channel that a lot of times, and I have pros and cons, but you don't want to just delete things or unlist things if it doesn't make sense. There is a video that popped off. I don't think we've talked about this yet. It's called Getting Started with Web3 Deep Dive Explainer. I did it in December 28th, 2021. And now it's in my top 4 for most viewed video this month. It's if you look at this graph, it just popped off. And again, there's cycles. People care about things later on. The YouTube algorithm, all of those things. No joke, at one point, the CTR was in the 20s. which is just insane. Like, and if you looked at when it started, like the CTR is like 6%. You never know. There's certain subjects, it just sometimes you might be too early, but that comes down to passion. I think about, again, if you're passionate about a subject, just go. Like, don't worry about like all these other things. If you're passionate and you can make 1 million pieces of content, go do it. There's an older woman that, keep going. Go.
Well, I was just saying, like, even if you have a particular topic of your channel and then you completely pivot to something else. Hi, Jeffrey.
There is Andrea Borman. She is a granny talking about Linux. And maybe we've talked about this, but she's at 58,000 subscribers. But some of her Linux videos, and it's her just at her table. She's been doing this for 14 years. Okay, all about Linux. And the most popular was, I don't even know this, FFmpeg on Linux. This has 800,000 views. Why you should think about switching to Linux, 300,000 views. And can I just share my screen? I know you hate when I edit. You have to edit.
I will say stuff. Riverside just updated share screens to a higher resolution, so that's a new update there. Yeah, finally. I don't know why it was. The fact that it was low resolution is kind of a sad thing, to be honest. But
possible.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to work on her channel. Poor thing.
Listen, but look at this. This is what I'm saying. But you look, 14 years ago, she's in the same position. She does the same thing. The same thing. I love it. Look, 14 years. It's the same thing. Different kitchen now.
Salute to you.
Look, it's the same thing. And then 2 days ago, same thing. Same bun. Same
I got to
everything.
interview her on the Creator Show.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Don't forget to send her to me.
I will. But that's what I try to say. Like, you've got to decide on your own goals. If it's views, if it's subscribers, is it money, is it impact? You've got to really be comfortable, and it could be a little mixture of a couple things, but you've got to be comfortable of what is good for you, and then just double down. And so, in the last couple of months, we were talking about it, and I saw a post with another creator. I was like, yeah, I think I'm as good as him or more talented. I just got to put in the reps, and I got to do more. I might hit the number, I might not, but that's what I'm going to do.
And we're talking in a content context, but we could definitely translate this to any particular field. You got to put in the reps. I wanted to touch on something you brought up, though, is the idea of like having that. I didn't finish because of the dog interruption, but the idea of like having 100 videos around topic A, but then topic B is something completely different. And so a lot of creators, unlist or delete those old 100 videos, but every one of those is a point of entry. They might find you for that, and there's still a chance they'll follow you for the second topic, the newer topic. They may not if they only care about topic A, but if by deleting it, you lose any chance of them sticking around or finding you at all. And like you said, an old video about the Web3 is now re-popping off. I actually have a mega Poly Pro post on my website around that topic, because around the same time I think you made the video, I made a huge post talking about Web3 and Metaverse because it was really a big topic and I was really into it. Like you said, if you're passionate about it, make some content. And maybe I'll go back and make that post free for anyone to read, because if people are searching for it, it'd be more helpful that way. Just interesting to think about, like, all that old stuff, even if it's not relevant to you now, can still help you by having those reps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reps are really important. If you look at my first content, for the most part, like, I haven't changed that much, but the cadence and how I can articulate certain things has changed. Some people might say it's not very good still, but it's changed over time. And you cannot replace the reps. There's nothing that prepares you than keep trying to get better at your craft and being on camera and learning what you're trying to do. And I really think they were talking about during the pandemic, streamers were they were in such a better position than normal actors and everything like that, because streamers knew they had to do their own lighting. They have to do their own makeup. They have to do all of the sets. They have to understand how to operate and use a switcher. And a lot of actors, if you look at them, when they're just sitting at their home, they've got that iPad. They don't even know how to position the camera. They don't care necessarily, because that's not them. I think if you can be a streamer or live stream and learn all of these disciplines in basic editing, you will be so much far ahead, even now, even after the pandemic, than most creators or people entering online just by having these basic skills.
And I think one point we are kind of making here too is like, regardless of your background or skill set, at some point it's going to get digitized in some degree, either by teaching somebody else or having Zoom meetings with colleagues around the world. In some way, shape, or form, you're going to have to learn those digital skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no matter what skill, like some people will be like, oh, plumbers, you can't do that. Well, actually, if you want to teach plumbing or you want to do videos or tutorials, or you have to be on screen.
Yeah.
Teachers, a lot of times I was working with a lot of teachers, but they felt trapped. Like, what was I going to do afterwards? You can create digital templates for parents or students. You can be doing tutoring online. There's so many different things you can do, and teachers don't get paid enough. I really think that they need more money, first of all, and support, but also you can do so many side hustles being a teacher because you already know how to interact with people. Being online just gives you so many opportunities and a wide range of people. I can't tell you how many people watch from like Uganda, India, all different parts of the world. I would never imagine that they would even tune in to watch anything that I would care about. You get to do that online, and YouTube gives you the opportunity.
I think a decent amount of my audience is in the UK, for example. So shout out to people across the pond. Yeah.
There you go. All right. I don't know. What's your percentage? Did you check it?
I had not anytime recently. We can talk about it on the Brand Doctor show next week.
All right. Keep moving then. And then you
All
don't
right.
want to talk about
Next
content?
question here. Tell me how you think about scaling brands. It seems very much a polymathic approach. What do you think?
Scaling brands. I think that over the last 5 years, I think I've changed my mind the most about this. I think I've changed my mind the most about that. What I mean by that is the word brand sometimes can sound so cheap, and my company has the word brand in it. I just think it's the entity of what a business is, and it has a personality. Personal brands are smaller niche brands where it has to do with one person. I think there are pros and cons where you can scale to an infinite degree, because if you're a personal brand and people care about you as a person, that's more powerful than anything. Yes, McDonald's, yes, Starbucks, but people care about people. If you think about Madonna, if you think about any of these, you can say one name and people have all these emotions because they're people and they're attached to them. The downside is if you are susceptible to a lot of pressure, depending on if you do not like having to be online or reading bad comments about yourself and those things, that can also not be mentally healthy for you as well. So growing a brand, I think I have come to think about it as, what do you want to accomplish with that brand? More than just you're a brand or you're a household name. Some people just want to be famous to be famous. That's a small group of people, and there's a lot to unpack with that.
Right.
In the most part, I find that most people want a brand to have a lifestyle that they want, or they want to accomplish something or have impact or something like that. In that way, I want to really drill down more on how you can accomplish those goals and keep those goals in front. Because once you start hitting certain numbers, it's very easy to lose yourself or lose your way. So that being the case, growing a brand, know your goals, know your last point where you want to get to. And then if you hit those goals, is it enough? Can you sell it? Do you want to do something else? Do you want to create another brand after that? I think a great example of that is like Sam Parr with The Hustle and then Hampton and all those things. It doesn't have to be all encompassing you all the time. I'll stop there.
I wanted to also just say too, it's okay to move on.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. You are known for one thing. One of my last guests on the show, I think 2 guests ago, I had Kei He. He's a famous, Notion person, and he's an entrepreneur, and he worked for BlackRock, like very, very reputable company, organization, and he left it kind of at his prime, no less, too. And it's like, because he knew that's not what he wanted to do going forward, and that's okay. He didn't he was kind of iffy about it at the time, but he knew that was what he wanted. Everyone else is like, what are you doing? Like, you're like ruining your life that way. And he's like, no, I know I want to move on. And I just wanted to make sure people realize in watching this, like, it's okay to pivot to something else. Even if you don't feel like it's the right thing to do, if as long as it's in your gut saying that you want to do it, that's okay. It's your life. You only get to live once unless you reincarnate, I guess.
True. I got to think about that. I need that on a shirt. No, I agree. I mean, it's okay if you move. Like, if people see, I've told you this story. Like Alex from Rosie, a lot of people know of him now, and he's big in, like, I would say more Gen Z and building. I really think a lot of people look up like Alex Hormozy, like how I looked up to Gary Vee. I really think Alex has taken that shine a lot. But Alex, I knew Alex when he started with ClickFunnels and he had his gym. And his whole thing was the like mustaches at all these places. And like, that's when I knew him, like when he used to run ads on Facebook and when he had a gym, because I was in the fitness world. Fast forward a couple of years, got acquire.com and all this stuff. And people are like, oh, Alex, I'm like, that guy, the gym guy? And that's okay. You can
Or Gary the
move.
wine guy.
Yeah. Life goes on. You can progress. You can do it with your own name and they can see the different ways that you progress throughout. Or you can make a new brand and start over and do whatever you want. I think it's just as long as you've got to be okay with it and realize that here are the pros and cons. This is what I want to do. And for me, and that kind of leads into, and again, shout out to my wife, that's always telling me this stuff. Like for a while, I was like, when I was working with clients, I never wanted to use my name. First of all, I don't even use my full name anyway, because people can't pronounce it all the time. So, but everyone's called me Doc since I was 5. So it just works. But I would never use Doc Williams because I'm like, no one would ever care. I'm not going to talk about it.
We do.
Oh, thank you. But that, if you look at the YouTube channel, I honestly think that is what people know me by. Like, it's weird. I was at the ConvertKit conference. I was at a couple other people like, yeah, you're that no code guy on YouTube. And I'm like, what? Like, you watch those, like, who would even, I wouldn't even, no one, I didn't think anyone cared about the video. But that was, then it's just a person. And so, you know, put out the voice. And by the way, when I first did live streams, if you can look back at my old live streams, the hate I used to get when I used to live stream, because people are like, this guy's, he doesn't know this. He's stumbling through his words. He's never used this product. But the brand to build with me is you're building with me. You're exploring these things. And the more I was more confident and I was telling people on the onset, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this isn't the right place for you. Get out. Like before I would be like, oh no, I know this. And I mean, we might have talked about this before, but one of the most invigorating things I will say that was accomplished in the pandemic, I had a lot of childhood guilt because I was held back. I had severe dyslexia. And so I never, I mean, for most of my life, I never told people I was held back because I just felt extreme guilt and just, I was always the dumb one. I just didn't have that perspective and, you know, but that actually became one of my leading things that I tell people. I have a severe learning disability, a lot of trouble being able to, you know, decipher letters. That's why I use a lot of voice AI and things like that. You can do it too. And so that became, a lot of people were like, you know what, I have dyslexia or I have ADHD and I you know, I barely finished school. And you were able to do this. This helps me to want to do that.
Motivation.
So, yeah. And so you be yourself. If you do your brand, will I ever be a 15 million, 17 million, 20 million, you know, subscriber, you know, creator? Maybe not.
Yes.
But I don't think that's, but it doesn't, but if it doesn't have to be, it doesn't, it won't change what I've done, you know? So
still set a flag down and you've shown your progress and you've documented your way through. And I will say too, like I empathize with your, you know, educational background. I didn't have as hard of a time as you, but I struggled a lot with a lot of my grades, and especially being in an academic world. And I actually had to be a super senior, as I call it, in order to just get enough credits to graduate. And I even had to test out of math. I had to get, I don't know what kind of test, maybe a CLEP test or something, some kind of GED kind of test for the math in order for me to get a diploma. And like that was, because I was determined to get a diploma, didn't want to get GED, but I struggled and I was kind of horrified to tell people I was super senior.
Yeah, no, and I think it's hard. I think just society and, oh, what college you go to. And like a lot of people ask me, you know, it was a lot more when I was more in corporate. They're like, oh, what college you went to or what university you graduate from. I have no problem telling people. Community college. Like I went all my degrees, just community college, because I knew what program. I wasn't going to, that's a whole other thing, is I'm not going to spend more money just for something that I don't need. And so I went to what I needed, and that, yeah, exactly right. I love learning things, but I don't need to have, I don't need to have a master's or a PhD or anything like that. Personally, that's just me.
I think for you especially, it definitely came back from that learning disabilities. But on top of that too, I think it also is a polymathic aspect too. Polymaths are generally more autodidactic, and so they want to teach themselves in their own way, at their own pace. And so that's one reason why I created the modular degree. And you've often talked about how to learn, how to build, and build through, like learn through building too. So you have your own kind of versions of the mod degree in that way. And it's just interesting to think about how it's a matter of pursuing what you want to learn at the style and rate that you want to learn it.
Yeah, I think there's we've talked about it. One of my favorite books, like Range. That's an awesome book. Super thinking. And there's, I can't remember, between one of those books, they talk about like the cottage industry and just apprenticeship and how people learn. And I mean, I think it's a lost art, especially, I mean, there's still some trades and they do apprentice, but for the most part, it's only trades. It's not like any other discipline mainly. And I think if you have projects, if you work in the field, if you do all these things, it becomes so practical, and you can learn so much from doing projects and going through these things. So yeah, I'm insanely just curious on what people are interested in and how to do things. A good friend of mine, I really like him, but for years, he will, what he has forgotten about JavaScript is more than I will ever know about JavaScript. Like, he's just done it for almost 25, 30 years. And I asked him how to do something, how to use APIs. And he was just like, rolled his eyes. He was like, let me know what you're trying to do. We'll create a company together and I'll take 50%. That's what he said. And I was like, oh, thank you. Never talked to him about it again, because I'm like, no, I'm going to learn myself. Don't tell me. I'll tell you if I want to hire you or if you want to partner. We'll talk about that. But don't think that I don't have the capacity to learn this or find out how to do these things. And I had to learn it myself and did it. But yeah, I want to have that opportunity. Don't just count people out. And yeah, I think that's what the whole channel's been throughout the whole thing.
One thing I realized as we've been talking, Doc, is that there's very few people who can talk on this right now. And I'm hoping that more and more people can crop up. The topic that I've been trying to work on and slowly build up a content pool around is how to be a polymathic content creator, and like building a jack of all trades personal brand, like a polymathic personal brand, if you will. So what are your thoughts on that, and how could someone build one out? Do you have like at least 3 or more specialties, right?
Yeah, I think I do. So I do. So the answer is, how could you do this? There's a couple different ways. I think about like the preferred, how does the algorithm like these things, and and then like, what do you just like doing, right? I think about, what's his name? Michael Reeves. Okay. An example of this. So I definitely think you can be whatever you want to do. To scale it to the way you want, I think it would make more sense to have different channels on YouTube. And the reason I say that is, and I didn't listen to this for years, I thought I could still do more things on one channel, but honestly, YouTube doesn't know what to do with you if you're just all over the place. That's not a bad thing if you just want to put out content, though. And that's where I'm like, if you want to be polymathic and do whatever you want and just have it on one channel, and you're like, I don't care about what happens with the algorithm, I'm just putting out great content, YouTube's going to reward that too, eventually. But there's no structure of, is it going to gain momentum in all of these things? There's always that hypothetical one shot in the dark. It could work, but we're talking about probability. What can you do? So do you want to grow, or do you just want to put out content? The other thing is, I still think that you can be very successful with a small YouTube channel, because if you're using that as your portfolio and then you show other people the sky's the limit. I mean, what I had under 1,000 subscribers to 10,000 now, it really hasn't changed, because I just link them a video that's either unlisted or public from my account, and that's all the proof that you need. I have a couple short films that it's not live on my channel, but that is my gateway to get most of my, when I'm in Vegas and I'm in the NBA, I show that video, I can get people that I would never get otherwise, right? So, but they see the channel, all of those different things. An example of Michael Reeves is, he's pretty much like a mad scientist, and he was with like a creator house called Offline TV. So a lot of people know like Pokimane was there and like all of them. She has since left, but like that was the biggest, like one of the biggest like self-funded creator groups. And to just name a few things that Michael did, and Michael's kind of stopped doing what he's doing now. A robot teaches me boxing. I gave my goldfish $50,000 to trade stocks. Teaching a robot dog to pee beer. Building a laser baby. If I built a surgery robot. I'll just stop there. Very strange kid. Very, very strange, but like he is extremely talented, really insanely, like really original ideas. I built a car out of scooters. It's just very weird things. From the surface, you're like, that doesn't really make sense. He's trying to be, but no, he's that talented of him knowing how to code and being like just insane makes the channel. So for a polymath, I think it's possible. It just goes back to goals and not being tied to metrics or vanity metrics like subscribers and all these other things.
Well, that I've been struggling with.
You too, like me too. What are you talking about? Like, and that's the biggest thing. Like, what do those subscribers mean? Like, does it really matter? If people are watching a lot of hours, they like it. Okay, is that good enough? Is it good enough for you? Is it good enough for like your goals? I think it's really easy to be insanely motivated by, I've got to hit that next 1,000, that next 10,000. I said my goal was 100,000 in 18 months. Like that's a goal, but that's also on the back of like, there's other reasons with that, but that's a vanity metric. I like full-heartedly, that's vanity. But also my goal right there, I want a minimum of 5K off the channel in 18 months.
It's very practical.
So with those kind of things, the short answer is yes. I think you can do it. You just have to make sure you check your ego at the door and you understand your goals and what makes you truly happy and reverse engineer to those goals and not what the metrics or what society tells you need on YouTube.
And really fighting against what a lot of times society tells you to need to be anyways, too. I do want to also tag into this. I'm not sure if I've publicly said this in content, but I might have told people, other creators wise, that like I've accepted the fact that my channel is going to grow slowly. Because in general, I make a variety of different content, even on the Polycast channel, let alone the Poly Tools channel, the creator channel. And so it's one of those things where between the interviews that we're doing right now, my regular solo content around knowledge management, sometimes Polymathic, and then my monthly vlog that I do, a lot of different things going on the channel. It's going to confuse the algorithm quite a bit, but I know that this is the right path for me to do. Those now page updates are important. The Polycast is important because I get to highlight people like you and showcase your polymathic life. And we're getting into some really interesting topics here, whether it's content creation or personal branding, that are very related to a lot of people who are polymathic, and how you market yourself is very much crucial to being able to sell yourself as a particular expert in multiple different fields. So this is just an interesting time to be alive and be able to express that polymathic life.
Definitely. And I think this is the perfect time to do it. And I think if you document, Gary Vee's been saying it for years, but if you do that, it will show up in whatever you like later on. I mean, I cannot tell you, I have an older channel. I mean, this is probably, I started that YouTube channel in 2007. You want me to see it? You wanted me to find it?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay.
I mean, not right now, but like after a call or something like that.
Yeah. And I'll never forget, I was at a club and a bar, and there was this band, it was called Russian Circles, and I just liked who they were, and I was recording, and I didn't know it was even their new song, and someone saw it on YouTube, and they're like, show the whole clip of that. You never know what's going to happen on YouTube. That's what I love about YouTube. There's enough of an ecosystem that some of the biggest creators over 1 million you've never heard of. And there's ones that are, smaller, and they're crushing it in whatever they do. You can be creative. It's just, you got to know what's right for you and go towards that. And I know myself, like 100,000 is a goal because I just want to expand the reach. It's more aspirational than do I care about 100,000. Do I care if I got a plaque? That'd be great. But if I don't make it, is it going to change my life any? You might have heard like Kevin Durant and others, when they win the championship, do their lives really change? Like, they still have to take care of their kids. They still have to take out the trash. They still got to do those things. Having 1 million or 100,000 subscribers doesn't meaningfully change my life. It's a nice accomplishment, but I'm more trying to optimize my life for happiness. And if it happens, it happens. If not, I want to be proud of the work that I'm creating and the impact and content that I wish existed. And Doc Williams, the channel, is basically all the content I wanted to learn how to do a certain thing. And I felt other creators didn't speak the language I spoke or didn't explain it to the level of detail that I need. Dustin, I just sent you a link, like how to add the subscriber URL.
Yes,
and I was like,
I love that.
And there was a video I searched on Google, and it was like 6 years ago. It was like 480p. I couldn't even read what he said. I was like, I would, number one, copy the URL that people can copy it from the description. I'd also have something to zoom in. And that's what I did. I was like, I'm just putting it on my other channel. There's another one, Replit, how to add a file in Replit. I did on my other channel. I'm like, no one's going to care. You know what? It popped off. It's the most liked video on that channel. I'm like, crap, I should have put that on my main channel. But
you still can.
I mean, I should.
There's a lot of things we need to do about your channel, boy.
Then we're not going to talk about it. This isn't about me.
Tuesday,
I mean, I get
Tuesday. But it is about you, actually. It's very
anyway.
much about you.
Let's move on.
Okay. I have a handful more questions here for you, and I wanted to ask you, and take this how you will, but I think that your answer will be curious. How to be a modern jack of all trades? I made this question actually as we were talking.
Okay. I'm glad that you asked that question. Do you know the whole phrase of like the jack of all trades?
Jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Exactly. And so to me, I feel like a lot of people have a lot of different things that they're interested in. They just might not be confident to tell people, or they don't want to look dumb. And this comes down to, I think, if you just document your day or document your thoughts and your feelings, you can become that jack of all trades. If you're interested in, if you're a graphic designer, but you also like barbecuing, okay, well, guess what? You're also a jack of all trades if you're learning how to barbecue or if you're learning how to cook. So I really think the catalyst is documenting well or documenting in a format that works for you. And I think a lot of people mess that up, where they look at people that they admire and it's on TikTok or YouTube, wherever, and they're like, I want to do that. But maybe they just don't do well. Like, oh, I've got to have the lighting perfectly, and they'll never go. But they'll talk for hours if it's just an audio like memo. We'll just do audio for right now. Just get used to doing audio of you taking descriptive notes or interviews, whatever it is, about all these topics. Later on, you can decipher and categorize it. Oh, I'm talking about this, I'm doing that. But just record yourself. We have enough space and we have enough storage, and it's cheap enough to almost record infinitely or very cheaply. If you use Google Cloud Platform or Amazon Web Services, I mean, you can just have a storage bucket and just drop things in forever. And it's relatively very cheap. So the answer is, I think it's just recording. It was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah, it's hit record Joe. He's had that for years. And yeah, record and just get started. You'll get better over time. Everyone loves a transformation. I can't tell you how many times when people look at Marquez, when they look at his old footage till now, people love to see that transformation and see how much you've grown as a person, your style, all those things.
Love that. And it's interesting too, because you started out with build with me, but maybe someone could be like garden with me or stream with me. You know what I mean? Like if people want to play games, that's why people do Twitch streams. They game with me.
Yeah. And there's two. There's one guy, I forget his full name, but it was Learn with Jason. He's a web developer. So it was that. And then Karima, you can find her at Karima Digital. She was in crypto. We met during the pandemic. She was like a friend of a friend that was in like Gary Vee's circle. But she did something called Study with Me, where it was just her doing lo-fi and she would study. That's how I actually jacked the name So that's how I got Build With Me, because I was like, oh, I'm building and all this stuff. And I honestly thought I was only going to do it for 40 nights anyway. So I was like, I'll just take Karima's idea and just take someone's format. It's use something that could work. But I love the gardening idea, Cook With Me. People love to see interactivity. If you look at Twitch or if you see it, people just love to be in a chat in the vibes when people are doing things. And so whatever you like doing, that is legal. Go ahead and document and have that done.
I don't know if you saw this, but Diplo said on like national TV that he was high on LSD, like on New Year's Eve.
I heard that on Twitter.
Don't do that.
That's too honest, and no one needs to know that. No one needs to know that. Keep that inside. Keep that inside.
I don't know if this is a can of worms to ask this question, but what is the difference between a no-coder and an entrepreneur?
Not much. Not much. I think at the heart of it, no-coders, you are already an entrepreneur and you're learning how to use tools to get to what you're trying to accomplish without having the skill of coding. That being said, the principles of coding and understanding programmatic languages, things like that, does help you. But I think the original spirit of no code was really this indie hacker, this tinkerer that could do side hustles and build whatever they wanted, and they didn't need to rely on a team or a dev house or a dev studio to do something for them. That being said, talking to more people around the world, there could not have been a worse name than no code because it doesn't translate very well. And if you look at Google search, the term is terrible. In fact, a lot of times when you see no code, it has to do a lot with gambling and things like that. It's a really weird thing. So I understand it and it's good, but if you're not in the space, or there might be, hey, do this without coding or do this without writing a line of code. But if you're saying you're a no coder, I've seen a lot of problems when it's a different language and they're not in the tech space. They're like, what does that mean? That literally doesn't mean anything. Like no code could technically be making a pizza. It has nothing to do with code. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true. So, yes.
Maybe you need to make a glossary and translate it yourself and find people to help you translate it to languages you don't know and be the beacon to help other people around the world who don't speak English know what it means and spread the movement.
So that's funny that you mention it. I would be interested. This is the thing. I've said this for a couple times with a couple different things. What would it take for no code to be in the vocabulary of the normal person? It would take a seismic shift the same way that ChatGPT and AI did 2 years ago. And AI, it would be this T1000 post-apocalyptic. People are like, oh my God. But when ChatGPT opened the floodgate and it became a normal part of society, then people were okay with saying AI and all these things. If no code had something like that, it would take something like that for it to move it forward. What I think I might have seen, and we'll see in the next couple of years how this ages. Okay, first of all, no code's not going anywhere. No code platforms aren't going to go anywhere because it's still a methodology to do something in a programmatic way. With what's happening with AI agents and IDEs, so development environments, and using AI agents, they're creating applications and you can use AI. And what people wanted to do 5 years ago with no code, that's what they're doing with AI agents right now. And I think it's only going to speed up. I think the terms of AI agents, as much as Meta and everyone else is pushing it, I think that will replace what most people think of modern day no code as. Because it's doing what everyone wanted to do 5 years ago. And it's doing it a lot more efficiently. People understand because they're using the word AI and agents. It almost sounds kind of cool what's going on with that. And no code is struggling to... Exactly. I'm serious. I always think about Agent Smith when I do that. But when you're having that, on the other side, no code is still trying to find its footing. And instead of trying to stand out, they've kind of just embraced and gone the marketing route of oh, we have AI in no code, or this is a no code, an AI empowered no code platform. We'll see if it's going to be to their detriment, but they're struggling right now to keep up with how fast AI is progressing right now. but it makes everyone better because they have to get better so much quicker.
It's interesting. Doc, what is next for you on your journey?
Well, I got to talk to you on Tuesday.
Well, okay, besides the prominent thing that you're doing, on the macro scale, Mr. Williams,
what am I going to do?
For you?
What do I want to do? So my next goal is to continue to create content that impacts the world and help them to be more independent and solo builders and solo entrepreneurs, and to have more agency over their life, to make money online and to have a lifestyle that they want. So for my YouTube channel, we're going to be doing a lot more storytelling, interviews, and showing people the path of what's going on with AI agents and how to have impact. What that will look like is more videos on the Doc Williams channel. Low-code engineers, we'll see how far it can go, but I'm very excited about it. I'm very bullish on what we can accomplish and to help more people with their projects. And personally, I think I just want to I'm trying to do a lot more reflection and contentment. I'm trying to decrease the amount of things that I own and have.
Same, actually.
Because I just want to be freer to travel and to have more space in my mind and capacity to be with family and friends. So I know what financially numbers I want to hit to make it a choice of what projects I want to do, a choice of what I'm trying to do. I have been having the privilege to work with great companies, brands, and companies like Low Code Engineers and X-Ray that are aligning with my interests. But I want, in the next 18 months, there's a reason I picked that, I want to have more financial freedom. That doesn't mean more money, but I want to have more financial freedom, decreasing the amount of stuff I own, all those things, to make sure I stay as close as possible out of debt completely, to make sure I can move in the world that I want to at this age, and not waiting until my 60s or 70s, where my parents unfortunately had to retire and then be able to live life. I do not want to do that. I mean, I don't have kids also, so I'm in a different situation than a lot of people.
Yeah, me.
It's true. It's true. And now that I mention it. Oh, but gotta cut this out. We gotta cut this. But no. But that's what I want to do. So those are my long-term goals, 18 months, 5 years. And maybe we'll do another episode in 5 years and see what happens, or something like that.
This show has the round 2. I initially came up with that idea very early on, but the next idea for the next series is the triple threat, where I have you and someone else that's similar to you in some skill sets, and see how you guys can compare and contrast. And obviously, some of the call to actions could be like, go check out Doc Williams' channel. This link down below. I'll also link our Brand Doctor's channel or playlist so people can watch that. What could be a call to growth for the audience to do, Doc?
Just start creating, start documenting now. Humans, everyone has their own unique story. It's beautiful to see their own expression online. Just go do it. Start today. It's not too late, no matter what people say, like, oh, it's too saturated. No, it's not. Just go express yourself, and that's it. Thank you so much for having me.